Hi everyone and welcome to the update for Nintex forms for Office 365 in March 2020. So if you come to the community and look at the Nintex forms for Office 365 release notes, you'll see we had the March release go out on April 1st, which is not an April Fool's joke. We have the following features, which you would have seen if you have been watching the Nintex forms for Nintex Workflow Cloud release note video. So since it's the same engine, you really get most of the same things come across. Sometimes some things won't appear in Workflow Cloud because they're more SharePoint centric. So as we see here, the control can now be duplicated in the designer, which we'll have a look at in a moment. We are continuing to invest in performance and how the designer and the filler performs. So we're always looking at improvements, and what we noticed was very large forms. When you went to click a control, it was just validating and checking rules and variables, and before it deleted, had to check if there was any changes to the rules or variables and those sort of things. And so now optimize that so those checks and balances are much faster now, which we won't look at in this video. And then finally, improve the readability of a read-only control. So we've had quite a bit of feedback in the community around the readability of disabled controls, which we'll have a look at as well now. So jumping across to my 365 environment, this is a simple form that I used during Process Fest, and first thing you'll notice is there is a new copy control or duplicate control icon above every control. So you can pretty much clone any control that you want. I don't think there's any limitations. We do groups and repeating sections and everything in between. So if we have a look at this group here, so if you see, I'll hover over this. If I duplicate, I can duplicate the sites control, and I can also duplicate the entire group as well. So just makes it quicker and easier to build your form. So that's really handy. But the area that I found really interesting around duplicator control was, let's say, a SharePoint lookup control. So if I come across to Process Fest, and I'll show you, someone was asking around how to do a cascading dropdown in 365. And so I have a bunch of sites, project sites in my 365 site. Now this has got over 1,000 items, lots of data in it. And so if you have a drop down with 1,000 items, it can take a lot of scrolling to find the thing you're after. Now most people would know from my videos that we now have type ahead. So if I put in I don't know, FOR, and it actually does type ahead and actually find those sort of things. And that's really good, but some people, they prefer to have cascading dropdowns. So rather than just have a list of sites, what someone was saying is, I want to select, let's say, I want to select the state, and then I want to select the project manager, and then I want to select the site. So the handy part here is now I can go 1, 2, and so I just have to change a couple of things. So I'm going to say, well, what I'm looking up now is I'm going to say the state, and the second one's going to be column to display would be project manager, and the third one will be column to display would be site. So it's already there. So now we've got that all built up. So I'm going to call that site, and we'll call this one project manager, and what was that one? State. So it makes it really quick and easy to actually just go and set up, because if I did a new one, I have to go in here and go SharePoint, I go list lookup, drag it on, and I have to go through here, and we pre-fill a lot of these controls for you, but still you have to go and select your list, and you're thinking, well, which list was it? It was, I can remember myself, project sites, and you've got to go to your view, and then you've got to go to your list, and all those sort of things. And so being able to clone a control just makes it much quicker and easier for you to get your job done. Now since I'm here, I'm just going to show off how we do a cascading dropdown for those that don't know how to do this. So we've got our state, we've selected that, we're going to show display unique values only, because in this list it has a bunch of Californias in there, and with this we can actually say, do you know what, only show me one version of California, because there is only one state of California. Second one, we say project manager, show me the project manager, and so when projects are active, so when they're showing active projects. So hang on, what are we saying? We're saying show me project managers that only have active projects. So you might have a project manager doesn't have a project at the moment, so we don't want them showing. Now what you can then say is show all list items. You turn that off, and you would say, oops, got that wrong. So we need to change that to say state is equal to, and we'll get rid of that for a moment, and we're going to say form controls, and we can insert state. There we go, got that got that right. And then this one, we're going to remove this because we don't really need to filter that just yet. We're going to say where project manager is equal to, hopefully we've got a control called project manager. There we go there. Alright, so now we've got that all set up, so we're going to go and have a look at preview and make sure this actually works. So first one first, we've got Wisconsin, and then the rest of them fill in. Now I'm doing a bit of things in the background, so ignoring that for a moment. Quentin Scroggs, and then he's only working on this project here. If I go and select something else in New York, you see that we now have someone else, and they've got 7 rand away. So that's pretty much how you can filter it down. And if you change something up here, it's going to change all those ones below. If I was to select Jody, she's going to have one here, and if I change it to, I don't know, Con here, he's only got Belgrove Point. So that's how you can do a cascading lookup. That was a bit of a long story around why the duplicate control is useful. But yeah, so that's what you've got there. Now the other thing you'll see here is when I selected one of these projects, this is actually selecting, let's go here, this could be through the rule actually, set field. So I'm going and selecting a project with a function. So yeah, we're getting IDs and those sort of things. We won't look at this video at the moment. But the feedback was when you've selected something, and previously it was very hard to read this. Now you could argue it's still not super easy to read, but certainly we've improved the readability by bringing the I think it's the opacity of the field to a lighter color and the font just a little bit darker, so the contrast is a little bit higher. So that's the other thing we've also introduced. So coming back to our release notes, we've implemented the duplicate control in the designer, which is helpful, optimized performance, which I'm not going to demo today, but also improve the readability of the control. So some small things in there, but hopefully they're useful to you. Let me know in the comments. Cheers.